The Way of the Wizard. People want to know why I'm interested in wizards if I come from India. My answer is this. In India, we still believe that wizards exist. What is a wizard? Not someone who can simply perform magic, but who can cause transformation. A wizard can turn fear to joy, frustration to fulfillment. A wizard can turn the time-bound into the timeless. A wizard can carry you beyond limitations into the boundless. A wizard practices alchemy, turning base metal into gold. But alchemy really stands for turning human beings into gold, turning our base qualities of fear, ignorance, hatred, and shame into the most precious stuff there is, love and fulfillment. So a teacher who can teach you how to turn yourself into a free, loving person is by definition an alchemist. A wonderful way to approach this topic is through one of the most wondrous relationships ever recorded, that between Merlin and the boy Arthur in the Crystal Cave. In the Crystal Cave of the human heart, there has always been a wizard and always will be. You only have to enter and listen. Why do we need the wizard's way? We need it to lift us from the ordinary to the kind of significance we tend to relegate to myth, but which is actually right at hand, here and now. To be alive means winning the right to say anything you want, to be who you want to be. After Camelot fell, this sort of freedom died, and life has been suffocating ever since. The purpose of learning from a wizard is to find the wizard within. Having found the inner guide to your spiritual nature, you've found yourself. The self is the ever-shining sun that may be in eclipse, but once the shadows pass, the sun is simply there in all its glory. There are a number of lessons in this tape, each told from the wizard's point of view. Listen to each one and let it sink in. You don't have to work or apply effort. After each lesson, illustrated by stories from the world of Merlin and Arthur, I will help you understand and live the lesson by applying the wizard's wisdom to your own experience. Lastly, we will go through the stages of transformation that the wizard takes his disciple through. I call these the 7 steps of alchemy, which begin at birth and lead eventually to total transformation. There is a teaching, Merlin said, called the Way of the Wizard. Have you heard of it? The boy Arthur looked up from building the fire, which wasn't going well. No, I've never heard of that, Arthur said. Do you mean they do things in a different way? No, just the way we do, Merlin replied. With a flick of his finger, he lit the soggy heap of kindling, and a blaze leapt up. Merlin then opened his hands and produced some potatoes and mushrooms out of thin air. Roast these, he said. Arthur nodded matter-of-factly. He was about 10. The only person he had ever known was Merlin, and they lived alone in the Crystal Cave in the ancient forest. The old man with the flowing white beard had claimed his right to the royal baby an hour after it was born. I am the last keeper of the wizard's way, Merlin said. Perhaps you will be the last to learn it. You see, you will be leaving here soon, Merlin continued. Don't drop that potato. Of course, the boy already had. Because Merlin lived backwards in time, his warnings inevitably came too late. What do you mean, leave? Arthur asked, apprehensive. I'm sending you into the world, the wizard answered. I have kept you out all these years, teaching you something you're not to forget. Merlin paused for effect, then said, the way of the wizard. He did not speak of the wizard's way again for quite some time. One morning in June, however, Arthur woke up to find his bed covered in snow. He looked outside to see Merlin standing stock still. Before the wizard was a strange apparition, a large boulder with a gleaming sword sticking out of it. The vision began to fade, and with it the snow. The boy felt like crying, for he knew that this was Merlin's gesture of farewell and remembrance. And so it was. What happened to Arthur after he went out into the world is by now the stuff of legend. He eventually found himself in London on a snowy Christmas morning outside the cathedral where the sword in the stone had mysteriously reappeared. To the astonishment of the crowd emerging from church, he pulled the sword out and claimed his right to be king. He fought long, bitter wars to achieve his throne and then established Camelot. Every day he lived the secrets of the wizard's way. Eventually he died and passed into history. After Camelot fell, Arthur's world was swept away by strife and ignorance, and Merlin proved to be the last of his kind. The wizards knew timeless things. The path to their knowledge is open. It unfolds as we listen to Merlin speak. A wizard exists in all of us. The wizard sees and knows everything. The wizard is beyond opposites of light and dark, good and evil. The return of the magical can only happen with the return of innocence. The essence of the wizard is transformation. Every morning, young Arthur went down to a pool in the forest to wash. Being a typical boy, he wasn't terribly diligent in his efforts. One day, Merlin chided the boy. Arthur hung his head. "When I bend over the water," he said, "I can't see my own reflection to see where to wash." Merlin was beside himself with delight. Having no reflection, you have no self-image. You can only be in the state of innocence. Innocence is our natural state before it becomes covered over with self-image, built up over many years. Without innocence, the ego, the I, the singular point of view presents an extremely distorting focus. The ego sees only one's own judgments and labels. Because he has no labels for things, the wizard sees them afresh, and the world sparkles with newness. When the eye is fresh, anyone can see the wondrous qualities of the world. They unfold like petals of a rose. The petals of your own innocence never fade, and because of that, the world never fades either. After you have listened to this lesson, give yourself a moment to try and regain a touch of innocence. Forget all your emotions and feelings for a moment, because innocence, as Merlin teaches, is beyond the mind. Just listen to this list of words: heavy, light, black, white, sun, moon. Taking each in turn, let yourself experience these qualities. Did you notice that it is impossible for your mind to avoid some sensation of heavy, light, black, white, etc.? It takes your participation for these qualities to exist. If your participation is innocent, then they will exist in a fresh, new way. This experience demonstrates that innocence cannot be lost, only covered over. The secret to seeing innocently is to see from a new viewpoint, one that is not conditioned by what you expect to see. Your eye is the life giver of everything it sees. Behind every molecule of existence, there must be awareness. Otherwise, the universe would be a random swirl of inert gases. Without awareness, there is no life, but only activity. This lesson comes down to saying, see innocently, and you will give life. You will know your own innocence again when you can see the love that breathes within every iota of creation. The wizard watches the world come and go, but his soul dwells in realms of light. The scenery changes, the seer remains the same. Your body is just a place your memories call home.